Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Lulabi. Tonight, I want to share a chilling tale from the beautiful Philippines about a woman who faced a terrifying creature known as the Manananggal. What is a Manananggal, you ask? Well, it's one of the scariest creatures you could ever imagine. So, dear listeners, settle in, turn off the lights, wrap yourself in a cozy blanket, and prepare to learn about the Manananggal. Growing up as a teenager is tough. There are so many pressures: schoolwork, friendships, and of course, boys. At 16, I met Aliso, a handsome guy with a fun personality who made my heart race. I fell for him hard, losing myself in daydreams of romance and excitement. We spent countless afternoons together, laughing and sharing secrets under the shade of the old mango tree in my backyard. But life took a turn when I discovered I was pregnant. My heart sank. I could hardly believe it. My family, devout Roman Catholics, would never accept a pregnancy outside of marriage. They had strict beliefs about right and wrong, and I knew I was walking a dangerous path. When I told my father the news, the anger that exploded from him was like a storm breaking over a calm sea. I had never seen him so furious. "You're nothing but a fool, an embarrassment to our family," he yelled, his voice shaking with rage. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the weight of my situation. I begged him to understand, but he wouldn't listen. In his eyes, I had shattered our family's honor. "Get out of my sight," he screamed, and with those words, he cast me out of our home. In fear and desperation, I fled. I didn't know what my parents would do or where I could go for safety. My only thought was to find Aliso. He had a house that his wealthy parents had just built. It was beautiful, with a lush garden bursting with colorful flowers. Maybe, just maybe, he would help me. As I approached his house, the vibrant colors of the garden made me feel a flicker of hope. The pinks, oranges, and reds of the wildflowers seemed to beckon me. With trembling hands, I knocked on the front door, my heart pounding in my chest. Silence hung in the air. I fidgeted nervously, my mind racing with thoughts of what I would say. Finally, the door creaked open. Standing there was Aliso's mother, a striking woman with salt and pepper hair that shimmered in the sunlight. She looked both intimidating and regal, dressed sharply in a dark navy blazer and trousers. Aliso had told me she was a politician in Manila, so I knew she was a powerful woman. "So, you're the harlot who corrupted my son?" she said, her voice icy. My heart sank further. "I'm sorry, ma'am," I managed to stammer, tears brimming in my eyes. "I have nowhere to go. I was hoping you'd let me stay here." Before I could finish my plea, her face twisted in anger. In an instant, she lunged at me, brandishing a silver knife that glinted menacingly in the light. I felt a sharp sting in my stomach, and panic coursed through my veins. She was trying to harm the child inside me. "Run!" a voice inside me screamed. Turning on my heels, I bolted away from her, the sound of her furious cries echoing behind me. "Don't ever come back, you harlot," she screamed, her voice a chilling reminder of the danger I faced. I fled into the dark forest, my heart racing with fear. With each step, the trees seemed to close in around me, their branches clawing at the night sky. I had nowhere to go, and the shadows felt like they were swallowing my innocence. I wandered for days, feeling lost in a world that had turned upside down. The pressure of my situation pressed heavily on my chest, and I began to feel as if I were fading from existence. But then, one day, the sound of rushing water broke through the fog of despair. My throat was parched, and I needed a drink. I pushed through the underbrush, and suddenly, I found myself standing beside a silvery river. The clear current sparkled like diamonds, inviting me to come closer. I stumbled forward, my bare feet stinging against the jagged stones. Dropping to my knees, I plunged my head into the cool water, drinking deeply. The refreshing liquid felt like a lifeline, revitalizing my weary soul. As I lifted my head, a sense of clarity washed over me. But then I noticed a figure nearby, a woman sitting on a large gray rock. "Are you okay, girl? You look hungry," she said, her voice startling me. "If you want some food, you should come with me." I looked at her, taking in her silvery gray hair and the lines etched on her weathered face. She looked like someone who had lived a long, hard life. With a mix of curiosity and caution, I nodded. The old woman slowly got to her feet, her movements labored but surprisingly graceful. She raised a finger and beckoned me to follow her deeper into the forest. As we walked through the winding paths, time seemed to slow down. The damp air clung to my skin, and I could feel the heaviness of the forest around us. The old woman didn't speak, but her presence was oddly comforting. I followed her, feeling a strange connection, as if she could understand my pain. Eventually, we emerged into a small clearing, and I gasped at the sight before me. A quaint bamboo house stood there, its walls crafted from thick bamboo stalks, and its roof covered with dark brown leaves. It looked like a hidden treasure in the heart of the forest. "Please come in," she said, gesturing for me to enter. As I stepped inside, the warm, earthy scent of the bamboo enveloped me. She pointed to a low seat made from dark wood. I sat down, wincing as the hard surface pressed against my legs. The old woman soon returned, carrying a steaming bowl of soup and a plate of rice. The aroma wafting from the bowl was strange but enticing. "Eat, dear," she urged, her eyes sparkling with an intensity I couldn't quite understand. "What's in the soup?" I asked hesitantly. "Baby pork," she replied with a chuckle, encouraging me to dig in. My stomach growled in protest, reminding me of my hunger. With a deep breath, I picked up a spoon and took a bite. The texture was unusual, and the taste was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It felt smooth and rich, but something about it made me uneasy. As I ate, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The old woman's gaze was fixed on me, her eyes never wavering. It felt strange to eat while she just stood there. "Would you like something to eat? Please join me," I offered, trying to break the tension. "I'll eat later," she mumbled, almost absent-mindedly. I shrugged, focusing on the food in front of me. It was comforting, yet I sensed an underlying unease that I couldn't quite pinpoint. Days turned into weeks, and I stayed with the old woman in her bamboo house. We didn't talk much, but she seemed to have a deep understanding of my sorrow. She rarely left my side during the day, but every night, she vanished without explanation. Each time she returned, it felt like she brought an unsettling energy with her. As my belly grew rounder, I could feel my baby moving inside me. I was filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety, wondering how life would change once the baby arrived. One night, however, everything changed. I woke up to a sharp pain in my stomach that felt unbearable. Panic gripped my heart as I thought, "I'm losing my baby." I wanted to scream, but the sound was trapped in my throat. An invisible weight pressed down on me, freezing my body in place. Somewhere nearby, I heard a strange sound, a moaning noise, like someone savoring a delicious meal. Suddenly, my belly felt lighter, and I knew something was terribly wrong. My heart raced as fear washed over me. The following morning, I awoke to a horrifying sight. The sheets were stained with red, and my stomach felt empty. I frantically looked around for the old woman, desperate for help, but she was nowhere to be found. That night, the woman returned, and I could see the satisfaction written all over her face. "Leave my house. You're not welcome here," she hissed, her voice cold as ice. "I can't," I sobbed, tears streaming down my face. "I lost my baby." "No," she said, a sick smile creeping across her lips. "You know, girl, I ate your baby last night, and it was delicious. Now, you will live my life." Before I could process her words, she lunged at me, grabbing my jaw with surprising strength. I was frozen in fear, unable to move or speak. She leaned forward, and I watched in horror as her mouth opened wider than seemed possible. A long, slender tongue rolled out, revealing a tiny black baby chick, its feathers wet and matted. Its glowing red eyes pierced through the darkness, and it let out a growl that sent chills down my spine. I started choking as she pushed the chick into my mouth. I gagged, realizing too late what was happening. In that moment, understanding dawned upon me. I was now cursed, destined to become just like her, a Manananggal. I could feel the transformation beginning, coursing through my veins like fire. As I struggled against the change, I realized the weight of what I had lost, the innocence of motherhood, the joy of raising a child, all snatched away in an instant. My heart shattered, and I could feel the old woman's laughter echoing in my mind, a haunting melody that promised darkness and despair. In the days that followed, I felt myself slipping away, consumed by an insatiable hunger for the flesh of the living. The urge to hunt clawed at my insides, and I could feel the beast awakening within me. I was torn between the remnants of my humanity and the overwhelming desire to give in to the darkness. With each passing night, I transformed further, becoming a shadow of my former self. I would rise into the darkness, my body splitting in two, a twisted version of the woman I once was. In my new form, I would fly through the night sky, searching for my next meal. The memories of my life before began to fade, replaced by a hunger that knew no bounds. I roamed the countryside, always on the hunt, always searching for the warmth of fresh blood. But deep down, I remembered my dreams of love and family, a haunting reminder of what I had lost forever. I had become a Manananggal, trapped in a never-ending cycle of darkness, forever cursed to haunt the living. And as I soared through the night, the moon casting a pale glow on my twisted form, I realized that I would never find peace. My fate was sealed, and the echoes of my past would forever haunt me. The next day arrived quickly, and the old woman was gone. She had passed on her curse, and now she would never be seen again. The air felt different, thick with an energy that crackled around me. I stood in my small bamboo house, staring at the beams of sunlight pouring through the cracks in the walls. My eyes flinched from the brightness, a million tiny pinpricks of pain stabbing at my pupils. I had to avoid the light at all costs. But something was changing within me. My weakness had vanished overnight, replaced by a new strength that surged through my veins. I could feel it, a powerful force, urging me to break free. Maybe this wasn't a curse after all, but a gift, a dangerous gift. My mind turned back to the old woman, the one who had altered my fate and bestowed upon me these mysterious powers. Time slipped away in a blur as I tried to master the abilities she had given me. Each day that passed brought with it an insatiable hunger, a growing desire that thrummed through every part of my body. I could no longer eat regular food, and traditional meals turned my stomach. If I tried to eat anything wholesome, I would become violently ill, doubled over with nausea. At first, raw, bloody meat had curbed my cravings, but even that no longer satisfied me. Every day, I battled my hunger, experimenting with my newfound gifts. I soon discovered that I was not far from home. I could make it there in less than a night, and there was someone I needed to visit, someone I needed to confront. As I made my way through the dense forest surrounding my home, I could smell the fresh earth, damp and rich, as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The darkness seemed to thicken with each passing moment, and with it came my anticipation. I could sense my heart racing with each step, my thoughts racing even faster. I was hungry not just for food, but for vengeance. When I finally arrived, I saw them. He and his new lover walked together, hand in hand, laughter spilling from their lips like a sweet melody. How delightful they looked, oblivious to the storm brewing just beyond their bubble of happiness. My heart twisted with anger. Their joy would soon fade, just like mine had. He had tossed me away like garbage, as if I were nothing more than a fleeting shadow in his life. He had sent our child to that beast to be devoured. The thought of it burned in my chest, a fire that would not be extinguished. I would make him pay for his betrayal. As the sun set, I plotted my trap, waiting for the perfect moment. Thanks to the old woman, I could alter my appearance. I could grow my hair long and dark, or shorten it to a boyish cut. I could change the shape of my face, my eyes, until I no longer resembled the girl who had once loved him. I would become a ghost from his past, a haunting reminder of what he had lost. Night fell, and the shadows deepened around me. I waited, hidden in the darkness, listening for the sound of his footsteps. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow on the path ahead. When I finally heard him approach, I took a deep breath and prepared to set my plan into motion. I pretended to twist my ankle, letting out a soft moan of pain. "Oh!" I cried out, letting my voice tremble with desperation. He rushed over, concern etched on his face. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes wide with worry. I smiled inwardly, knowing my trick had worked. He didn't recognize me yet. "I'm fine, just a little hurt," I said, wincing for effect. "Could you help me?" He nodded, wrapping his strong arms around me. I leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his body. His hand brushed against my chest, innocent and unaware of the storm brewing within me. I pointed in the direction of my home, and we began to walk. We chatted lightly, the conversation flowing easily, just as it once had. I leaned heavily into him, pretending to limp, allowing the familiar sensation of his presence to wash over me. I had to stay focused. My tiny houses loomed in the distance, and I asked him sweetly, "Could you help me get inside?" He agreed, and together we made our way to the entrance. Once inside, he helped me sit on my bed, his touch gentle and kind. He sat beside me, resting his hand lightly on my leg. I smiled quietly, feeling a rush of excitement as I invited him to move closer. When his lips pressed against mine, I was overwhelmed with memories of our past, the laughter we shared, the love we once had. I reached up, my fingers caressing his face, feeling the heat radiating from his skin. But with every touch, my hunger grew more intense, a wild beast clawing at my insides, demanding to be fed. With a little pressure, I pushed him back onto the bed, my heart racing. I rolled over on top of him, my fingers trailing from his face to his chest, exploring the contours of his body. His kisses deepened, passion igniting between us. I could feel his hands wandering, but I had other plans. His kisses traveled lower, moving down toward his belly button. I pressed down hard, and he let out a gasp, followed by a wet sound that echoed in the quiet room. His eyes shot open wide, confusion and fear replacing the warmth of our moment. "What's happening?" he stammered, panic seeping into his voice. His scent filled my nostrils, reminding me of freshly baked bread. I pulled my lips away, letting my face transform back to my own. The features he once adored now twisted with a hunger that could not be contained. "Do you remember me now, my love?" I asked, my voice low and laced with venom. "How could you throw me away? You cursed our baby to be taken by a beast. She ate our baby, just like I'm going to eat you." His eyes widened in horror as the reality of my words sank in. I could see the realization wash over him, his heart racing as he processed the betrayal. I could feel his fear, and it fueled my hunger even more. I feasted on his flesh, the taste sending waves of pleasure coursing through me. His heart, so full of life just moments ago, now lay still beneath my hands. I savored every bite, the rich flavor filling me with a satisfaction I had never experienced before. The pounding of his heartbeat faded, replaced by the sweet taste of victory. Finally, I felt full, but not completely satisfied. I looked down at him in disgust, my eyes glinting with a new hunger. "Your new friend smells so good to me," I whispered, a wicked smile spreading across my face. "I know she's going to have a special treat growing in her belly, just for me. I'll wait until it grows a little more, just like I did with you." A thrill of excitement shot through me at the thought of my next meal. My mind raced with possibilities. I could do this again and again, feeding on the ones who had wronged me, savoring their fear as I devoured their flesh. I was no longer a victim. I had power now, and it was intoxicating. As I stood up, wiping my hands clean, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I was free from the pain of betrayal, free from the shackles of love that had once bound me. I could be whoever I wanted to be now. My laughter echoed in the empty room, a haunting sound that danced with the shadows. But there was more to do. I couldn't let my hunger go unchecked. I needed to feed it, to grow stronger. I knew my next target would be the one who had discarded me without a second thought. The one who thought he could simply walk away from our life together and leave me in ruins. I moved quietly through the house, listening for any signs of life outside. The night was still, but I could feel the energy around me shifting, pulsing with excitement. It was time to plan my next move. I stepped outside, the cool air wrapping around me like a cloak. The stars twinkled overhead, a reminder of how far I had come and how far I still needed to go. I could hear the distant sounds of laughter and music from a nearby gathering, and it made my heart race. I had to be careful. My gifts were powerful, but they needed to be harnessed with precision. I could use my ability to transform myself to my advantage. I would blend in with the crowd, draw them in with charm, and then strike when they least expected it. As I walked toward the sound of revelry, a plan began to form in my mind. I would become a siren, luring them with my beauty and grace. They wouldn't know what hit them until it was too late. I arrived at the gathering, a lively scene filled with laughter, dancing, and music. The lights twinkled like stars, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of normalcy, a fleeting reminder of the life I once had. But I shook it off. I was no longer that girl. I moved through the crowd, transforming my appearance into something alluring and captivating. My hair flowed like silk, and my eyes sparkled with mischief. I caught the attention of several partygoers, their gazes lingering on me as I danced.